Welcome to The Next Decision, the show about choices revenue leaders make when markets shift, growth gets challenging, and the old playbooks stop working. I'm Mike Swainey, president at Decision Council. On this show, we speak with leaders making the decisions that shape modern growth, from brand and demand to technology and partnerships, customer experience, go-to-market strategy, and more. And today, I'm so pleased to be joined by Jeff Alpen, Vice President of Global Partner Ecosystem at Fastly. And Fastly helps companies deliver faster, safer, more reliable digital experiences through edge cloud, security, content delivery, compute capabilities. But today, I'm more interested in how companies like Fastly scale, because in complex B2B markets, growth does not just come from a better product or a bigger sales team or maybe even a better campaign. Increasingly, we're seeing that growth really comes from the ecosystem around the company. So I'm going to talk with Jeff about how partnerships are changing, why the best ecosystems create mutual value, and what it takes to make partner-led growth a real business strategy. So with that, Jeff, welcome to The Next Decision.
Thanks, Mike. Good to be here.
So glad to have you today, because you sit in just a fascinating role. You're not just managing a channel or a set of partner relationships. I feel that you're helping really shape how Fastly grows through an ecosystem. And before we get into that, I'd love to hear a little bit about your path to where you are today, and a little bit about your current role.
Yes, happy to provide that background. Like all of us, I've had a journey, in my case, 20-something years of a couple of different things, and all, I think, when you look back, related. I spent the first 20 years as a service provider to technology companies, and it was professional services. And I spent the last 10 years in the technology side, trying to work with different partner types to help them grow. And in all cases, I have bridged this, what I'll call the builder-seller chasm, where you have to both understand what you're building and then translate that into a set of offers and narratives that can be sold. And so you think of this construct of build the product and sell the product. And it's a very virtuous cycle, and one that's reinforcing, that learns from both sides. And today I find myself at the heart of Fastly, where we are building on top of a program that has been in place for the last 5 years, and really looking to make our ecosystem more robust, more resilient, more valuable, first for the end customer, next for the partner, and finally for Fastly. And it's not that they're stack ranked, it's just the way that we believe the value flows. Do right for the customer, it'll be good for the partner, and it'll be good for Fastly.
I love that. How's that different, in your opinion, from maybe how partnerships were viewed 10, 15, 20 years ago, just based on, and maybe we don't go back that far, but I don't know, even in the last 5 or 10 years, it feels like that there's been quite a shift.
Well, if you go back far enough, the greats of our technology industry, from Cisco to Microsoft to these very large behemoths, used partnerships. I wasn't there, but I see them as using partnerships for distribution and as a route to market. And really, it would be very unfair to say that they weren't value adding, but it was a more functional, more transactional mechanism. And as the world has evolved, certainly there's a bunch of technology companies out there that continue to leverage distribution, value-added resellers, but then expanded to include the SIs, the global GSIs, the managed service providers, and realized that there was new forms of value to be created for the ecosystem by helping people build services, build software, in the case of Fastly, on top of the platform. So the what we'll call the routes to market, or the different ways in which we could get to the end customer, became availed to us. And so today you have, I think, a much more two-way ecosystem, where it's not just give your product to the partner so that they can sell it, but really understand the full 360 degrees of relationships and interconnections and integrations that exist.
Yeah, I think when I talk with folks and we talk about partnerships or ecosystems, I do feel sometimes, building off what you said, that folks will hear that word, hear the word partner or partnership, and they'll think resellers, they'll think referrals or co-marketing. Actually, if they think co-marketing, I would take that every time. Co-marketing, co-selling, co-serve. But I think you're talking about something really bigger and important here, that it's more about a system that helps customers adopt, helps them get value from complex technology. Was there a moment maybe in your career, or a moment at Fastly or otherwise, where you realized that partnerships needed to evolve, or they were evolving, or that they needed to become more of a growth engine, or at least more or less of kind of the same, as we saw in the past?
I think it's probably always existed, and what we've brought to it today is probably a bit more honesty and acceptance of the reality that it's got to be two-way, and it does require some naivety and some blind ambition and dreaming to create two-way partnerships, because it can be. I understand the inherent challenge of going to leadership of an organization and saying, we've got to create value for the partner, and we will get that value in return. And when you start to have mechanisms that are focused on that, and what I'll call lead efforts and lead metrics that are partner centric, where's my deal, Reg? Where's my new business booking? Where's my pipeline?
Yeah.
And those are very natural questions. I understand that. It's not instead of that, but it's how do we get to that? And so, as every organization has looked for new ways to grow, some are better than others, I suspect, in seeing the world in a non-zero sum way and believing in the true definition of partnership, which is inherently two-way. Like, a partnership has give and take from both sides. I would go back probably. We could figure out when the book by Adam Grant was written, the Give and Take book, Givers, Takers, and for me that clarified a lot. Like, it gave me confidence to begin in all my work. How do you give and then you get? How do you give and then you can take? And I that book got some traction, and I think it encapsulates directionally what partnerships have had to become. It's more competitive now. There's a lot more business in the world. There are more technology companies. There are more people out there in the world looking to create mutual value. And while this is not a direct answer to your question, we all are very mindful of creating durable partnerships, creating valuable partnerships. What's easy to do? And I could have 5 to 10 calls a week with companies that want to partner, and we could put a piece of paper in place, and we could write a press release, and we could do something nice on LinkedIn, and that would feel good, and it might work in a little bit of a way. But I don't think that starts to go into the category of being durable and sort of being resilient and value creating across time. Now, some partnerships may have a timely necessity. Like, we're doing this one time to win a deal, and it'll be good for the customer, good for the partner, and good for Fastly. However, that is probably not the way to build an enduring ecosystem.
Yeah, I will say that in the agency world, and having been on this side of the partnership conversation many times, it has often felt one way for sure. And so I've been on that side of those conversations, and I ask myself, I'm like, well, wait a second, we should be more than simply a source of leads. Of course, we want to get you into our clients as much as we want you to refer us. I think understanding that on both sides, and you said it earlier, or maybe it's before the show, we were talking about kind of having a pipeline, helping that partner build a pipeline. That couldn't be more true, because we want to do that for our software partners, and we just ask in return that we're also mutually co-serving, selling, together, and building that growth engine through a mutually defined ICP, where we know that we're working together on the customers that can benefit from an agreement or a partnership like this. So, I think that sets up kind of the part of the conversation that I'm really excited to get into, which is this idea of a strategic partnerships becoming more strategic. I think the question can't just be, how do partners help us sell more? Like, that's sort of like, 101, right? And we're all like, okay, right. I know they want pipeline. We want pipeline, of course. But so maybe the better question is kind of, how do we help partners win because of us? And I say that as an agency, and I think you're saying kind of something like that as well. And I think those best partnership ecosystems are built not just around value, or really not around value extraction, but they're built around mutual value. So, as you think about this, and as you've already kind of began to kind of tee up, what do what does it mean where you say, hey, we want to help the partner, they have metrics, we want to help them achieve those? What does that look like? What's it take to build a partnership, a partner ecosystem where the partner, has to win first, or at least as well as Fastly?
Well, we've got very specific expectations on this and in the way we approach building the ecosystem. And I would say that there is three forms of value for us to create for the partner. There's probably more, but we really use a three-part construct to motivate ourselves and to hold ourselves accountable. Economic value creation. Does the partner make more money because of the relationship with Fastly? Number one. Now, we may refer you in, Mike. We may not be able to refer you in. Okay, what value are you going to create? Number two, can we allow the partner to technically differentiate themselves with their end customer due to the co-marketing that we create together, due to the enablement we provide to the partner, due to the tools, technologies, and ongoing support that we provide the partner? So we call this technical differentiation value. The third is brand value. Does your association with Fastly allow you to have a stronger, better brand in the markets that you're trying to serve? Now, would we like to hit all three? Yes. Do we have to hit all three? Yes. Does it sometimes take time to get all three? Yes. And so we absolutely must motivate ourselves to be able to deliver one form of value to you from day one. And I think this is really, really important. And you can look at different agencies, different SIs of different scales. It's going to be a long time before a very large global SI is going to receive true global economic value from Fastly. If we're charging towards $1 billion in revenue and these are $25 billion companies, we're not going to move the needle economically. So we've got to move it in different ways. That may be different with Decision Council or a different agency where we can be economically more valuable. So that's the way we see it. And I would put this in the category of growth. And growth is kind of like a word like partnerships. It's got many meanings, but we absolutely must be seen as helping our partners grow in those, in my world, the three forms that I've defined as being most important.
I love that, because I caught myself just in the conversation diminishing the value of the partnership to the dollar, just in the way I was phrasing it. And you're absolutely right. And it's one of the things that I've thought a lot about over the years, which is there are more ways to obtain value from the partnership that might not always just be a direct dollar for dollar relationship, but rather, like you said, co-marketing, co-selling, kind of going to market together, building brand and enablement together, demonstrating how we can co-serve together. I don't want to lose sight of that, because those are important things that sometimes get swept under that rug of what pipeline did DC bring in for Fastly today, or
Right.
vice versa, what pipeline.
Right.
And I think that too often is where executives will go, and we know why they do that.
Yeah, you've got to hold both two things in two hands, and always know that we need a win tomorrow. Like the drive for a win tomorrow, for a booking tomorrow, for a pipeline tomorrow, a bias for action, as Amazon says, can never go away. We are not an endowed organization that has many years to realize our dream. Like, we have to make the quarter. And at the same time, you never know when the value you created in an introduction, in a marketing campaign, in a pitch, where that leads you. And today I'm in a situation right now where we have got a partner that you'd put into a smaller category with a niche piece of technology that has introduced us to a global behemoth who is looking for us to become a part of their ecosystem that we would not have gotten into were it not for that partner. Is there a booking event? Is there a deal reg? No. But there's a phenomenal opportunity for co-innovation, for co-building, for co-marketing, for value creation for the entire ecosystem, and ultimately a way to serve customers in a new and novel way based on, an emerging technology.
Absolutely. And I think, we're shifting the conversation to one of how we help partners create something more valuable. Whereas maybe it could have been, how do how do we insist that they carry our message or help us carry a bag? And you guys play an incredibly complex and competitive, technology category. Um, I think what you offer partners at really the ground level, the entry level, is helping them understand how to maneuver within those complex technology categories. What are some ways that you're doing that now, whether it be, like you said, I loved how you said, the co-enablements. I loved how you said, some of the co-selling opportunities and the co-marketing. Like, what else are you doing to help your partners kind of make sense of these really complex technology categories?
Well, we are infrastructure for the internet, and us and our brethren run the internet, with the help of many. And that is no small responsibility. Within that sort of framing, you have got a lot going on. And well, let's use security as an example. Let's look at the rise of bots, for lack of a better label. And today, I think it's fairly commonly accepted that half of the traffic of the internet is humans and half of the traffic of the internet is bots. And we are very active with our partners right now navigating this new world, because you've got customers like a large publisher that is very concerned with a bot coming and scraping their website, taking the content and serving it up somewhere that is outside of their ecosystem. And you would have retailers who are saying, these bots are problematic potentially, but they may also be credentialed by a human to buy something from me. So this is a great area of work for us, where we're working with partners to help them learn, to help them grow, to help them see around corners on behalf of their customer, and move into that label that you're probably embracing as an organization of trusted advisor to the customer. It's not just thank you for the assignment, we'll go do it, but you want that end customer to be asking you, what should we do? How should we approach this problem? And that's something where, coming full circle with this conversation, where us being at the core of the internet and being able to technically see problems before they emerge, working with groups like yours that are interfacing with an end customer to help translate what's going on the fundamental level into a business problem that we know exists or will exist in some short duration.
Yeah, to me, that's a good bridge to enablement, because I think if the partner ecosystem is going to drive growth, I feel as though we can't just sign up partners and hope they figure it out. You're talking about a deeper level. You're talking about a consultative engagement whereby I feel like you're offering up the story, the tools, and I don't know the ins and outs, and I'm hoping to learn more as we have this conversation. But like, what has to be operationally set in stone for, a partnership or a partner ecosystem to actually work?
Well, enablement is key, and enablement has many definitions. It's training, it's certification. It's how do we get the partner smart on our technology, smart on the industry landscape as we see it, and equipped to be self-reliant and solve customer problems. This is ongoing. And in order for this to be successful, there's a two-way street that has to be in place. Fastly, in our case, has to create the materials, the content, the mechanisms, the access points for a partner to consume what we believe to be the enabling content. The partner has to be willing to put skin in the game and invest in the education of themselves, the education of their people, getting ahead of the curve. And when you're in a professional services context, that can be very difficult, taking people off the bench to go learn something that may or may not be billable to the end customer. This is the sort of second piece of enablement. We have got to continue to build a story. Mike, if you and your team invest in learning this, there will be a multiplier effect for you where you can, bill more dollars per hour because of your knowledge that's specialized. Find new problems to solve that allow you to have bigger wins. And this is ongoing. I think this is a bit of maybe an editorial comment, but enablement is never done. And there can be an interesting question. Is the partner enabled? Wrong question. Has the partner been enabled today, this week, this month? And I can guarantee you there's 100 different instances of Salesforce out there in the world where there's a checkbox clicked that the partner is enabled. No, the partner was enabled.
Yeah.
Yes. It's like a lot of things. You've got to build processes around this. You've got to build systems. You've got to build incentives. You've got to build value. The content, the enablement has to be fundamentally valuable to the end consumer, the partner. And I'll give you a second anecdotal comment. If yesterday it was a portal, tomorrow it is an agent, and this is what we'll build. We will build an opportunity for you to come in and your people to come in to the Fastly environment and tell us, where are you? What are you looking at? Where are your gaps? Who are you pursuing? And based on that prompt, based on that set of questions being answered, we will be able to generate a custom curriculum, if you will. That sounds too heavy. A custom set of content, a custom set of enablement tools, pieces, technologies that allow you to get very educated on exactly the problems you're trying to solve. And in that way, this is an ongoing process. It's not done. It's never done. It's always on, 365 days a year, 24 hours a day, and continually regenerating itself. What we taught you yesterday about WAF, Web Application Firewall, or bots, if it was yesterday, it's old. We're here today now, and so we have to continue to enable.
Love it. Couldn't agree more. I think that's one of the checkbox analogy is probably the most. It resonates. Probably also the most damning as well when you think about it going forward. But last question before we move on to our final section. If you've got the mic here, so and let's get practical for a moment. If I'm a growth leader and I want to try to make partnerships a bigger part of my revenue strategy, what should they do first? What's the first thing they should do as they kind of think about partnerships as a potential growth driver for their organization?
You need to know your market, which you likely do. You need to know the customers that you are serving or that you want to serve. And then I absolutely take a page from the Amazon playbook, start with the customer and work back from there. And so you would ask yourself, what technologies would enable me to serve a customer in a new way or better than I am today? And there's a whole range of technologies out there. I mean, there are resellers that are helping 750, the big resellers in the world have 750 technologies on their rate card. And so I would advise anybody that's in the services world, really start with what problems you want to solve. And that is going to be informed by where you think the puck is going, to use the hockey metaphor that we talked about pre-go live, and where you have experience. And so there's probably where do you have experience? What does the world need? And how do you make money? And at the center of that, you would begin to identify the technology partners that can help you on that mission. And this is, I think, a body of work that has to happen in a thorough way so that you're not just grabbing the latest shiny object. I mean, go do a partnership with Anthropic and you're going to have a great press release and you're going to have some great day one PR. How are you making money? That's not me saying you can't make money doing that. I'm just saying you've got to be thoughtful in what does your customer need from you and from your portfolio of technology partners. And the service providers are on the tip of the spear. I mean, you are seeing problems firsthand that the customer has in a lot of cases, not in all cases. And I'd work back from there. And so it's become shot selection. Depending on how big you are, you're only going to be an expert in a small number of technologies. And I think that is the second piece of advice is get specialized, get really smart in the case of Fastly, network speed, delivering content, resiliency of a network, security. How are you secure? We play in a particular slice of the world of security, which is broad and vast and ever changing. And I think that would be sort of the second piece of, my recommendation would be attempt to get really sharp in a couple of areas and not try to be a master of many things, especially if you're a smaller or mid-sized company.
Not to put words in your mouth, but I will. A lot of what you said there reminds me of just a single word: focus, and
Yes.
knowing where to focus. And I think one of those traps with a lot of ecosystems that I've seen or strategies I've seen is I want more. I want more partners. I want more emotions. I want more categories. But maybe more isn't always better, especially if you're not focused. And for us on the PS side of the house, we'll talk a little bit sometimes about fewer, bigger, better. And by that
Yes.
meaning from a client selection and a partner selection standpoint, it's if we can have fewer larger clients, we can meet our revenue growth goals. And I think a lot of companies would say that as well, trying to expand your deal size
Yeah.
and grow in that way. It honestly takes sometimes more effort to serve smaller organizations than it does larger, or at least the same. And we're always trying to find ways to go fewer, bigger, better, at least from our perspective. I think that's an interesting idea for us to kind of kick around too. Because I think from a partnership standpoint, a lot of companies think they want more because it sounds impressive. Look at our NASCAR slide
Right.
of partners,
Right.
but that's not the same thing as being productive, or having a productive ecosystem. So where do you focus? Like, how do you know where to focus then to try and get everything goes back to your goals and your objectives. And the same thing is here with partnerships. How do I focus? Where do I start to try to meet some of those goals without sort of boiling the ocean to having a list of 1,000 partners?
Well, there's a relationship component here, and once you have identified who you're trying to who you serve and who you're trying to serve more, you're looking at momentum in the marketplace. So, what technologies have momentum? What technologies will be around in 10 years? And I think that that's if you're building a durable business, if you're building a business that has ambitions to go beyond a couple of years, then you'd look at sort of timeless problems. And again, Bezos is probably, one to quote here. What problem do I know exists today that will exist tomorrow? And that will allow you to sort of do shot selection with what technologies that you want to be engaged with. And there can be a range. Once you've got that, I would say you want to start to have some conversation. And is there a match on paper? That's great. Is there a match culturally? That's great. And do you have relationships with the people at your partner, both directions, me with you and you with me, that are interesting, that you believe will have trust over time and have a desire to work together and beyond any particular transaction? And hey, let's do some transactions. I have no issue with that. Like,
Yeah, of course.
absolutely. And you're building a partnership, which is intended to build the respective businesses. And I just can't see a way where you don't have that builder's mindset, that ability or that requirement to say, this has got to go beyond a year. This has got to go beyond, I think that there's, 5 year horizon where can this partnership service both for 5 years, one day at a time?
And at the outset, let's say that you're working with a new partner, you've got the agreement in place, we've signed NDAs, we're ready to roll. Is it at that point that you're trying to work to establish joint KPIs or joint objectives and outcomes, whether that's a year from now, 5 years from now? Like, how do you know if it's actually working, and what are the steps, I guess, that you might take to get there?
I think you can get to a partner agreement too quickly sometimes. There is necessary documentation at the front end, which is probably in the form of an NDA, and that says this is protecting us mutually. There's a way in which, and we're not here yet, but you would start to think about covenants. Like, are we both going to put skin in the game, and what skin is that? Are we both going to make investments, and what investments is that? Uh, I think that a win or two or three as a proof of concept as a proof of value could precede a partner agreement. It doesn't have to. I like to do this sort of one win at a time, and be very experimental about it. And yes, you should have. Okay, Mike, we're going to do an agreement together. Here's what success would look like for us on an annual basis. Let's do 4 wins together. Let's have 100,000 in bookings for me and 250,000 in services fees for you. I think that's okay, and give ourselves permission to advance one win at a time. And that's sort of the way that we try to guide ourselves. Like one win at a time is okay, as long as at the front end in the due diligence, you believe there's 4, 6, 5 years worth of wins to be had.
Yeah, and I think that makes a lot of sense. I come from a world of fierce objective setting. I think it's my Procter and Gamble background as a wee lad. So whenever I think about those things, it's always about objectives, goals, strategies, measures. That was burned into my skull from P&G. But for me, yeah, getting absolutely granular and violently aligned on what those objectives are, I think enables the best outcome, hopefully for both organizations. But and you mentioned this earlier a little bit about AI and a little bit about Anthropic. I think was one of the examples. So it got me thinking. I wanted to put this in the back of my head to try to come back to it. Clearly, I think markets are only getting more complex. I think everyone would largely agree with that, whether it's AI or security or infrastructure, CX, et cetera. I feel like buyers have more options, but they also have more uncertainty because they're not always sure what to trust, and they're not always sure where that information came from. And I guess what I'm positing, and maybe you'll join me in this thought experiment, is that I think ecosystems are maybe being made more important in those types of partnerships, and not less, because as technology continues to get more and more complex, I think those ecosystems do become more important. Customers need help turning technology into outcomes. So I guess the question would be, do you believe that? Is that a fair statement, or how do you see the world in which we live these days?
Well, I think the choice is the amount of choice is exploding. And I don't know who said this, but it used to be scarcity was the enemy, and now abundance is the enemy. And I suspect you feel this in your own life. It's like there's
You
just
do.
too much.
Yeah.
So curated ecosystems, I think, are a very powerful construct for helping the end customer going forward. And proof of work will be increasingly critical. I am a huge fan of proof of work. I'm a huge fan of public proof of work. So where we may have arbitrary tiering in the partner ecosystems today, I suspect in the future we will have proof of work that inherently allows the customer to decide what tier you're in. I can tell you the decision counsel's in my gold tier. Why? That can be opaque. I can tell you decision counsel has done 25 migrations from competitor X to Fastly over the last 5 years and runs 10 CSOCs for us. Like the ecosystem, I do think becomes increasingly important in a very, very diverse world where technology can be birthed overnight. We don't know what's coming. Security is extremely unknown frontier right now. And I see the ecosystem becoming increasingly important where you've got collective intelligence coming together. You've got collective assessments coming together. What Amazon may be seeing something, Stripe may be seeing something, that how we're surfacing that signal to go after the bad guys, the bad actors in the security world. Like that, I don't think they put themselves in any ecosystem, but I can tell you that there's a lot of work being done by organizations that don't share a P&L. You can put that in the category of ecosystem. And the more we can create that, the more we can make that happen. I see that only being positive.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I think to your point, security complexity definitely increases that need for a trusted partner, and I think to also your point that is only going to accelerate. Although it seems crazy to say that as it accelerates, daily. Hence why I think earlier, like, did we enable the partner today? Because what might have happened yesterday
Yeah.
may no
Yeah.
longer apply. So
If you think about the ecosystem that we're creating, my expectation would be that a customer could come into the Fastly ecosystem, come into Fastly and see our ecosystem of partners and have some level of trust that those are partners that are validated, vetted, seen as best in class, seen as those being trusted advisors to them. And that's again, the metaphor may not work, but it seems to me that is the thing that we want our ecosystem to have as a reputation, that it's best in class. Like the Fastly partner ecosystem is best in class. people that are a part of it will serve you well.
Well, Jeff, I think we'll pivot to round out this episode. This has been a great conversation. I love it. And I want to leave you with just one question. And we ask this question at the end of the show and with every guest before we let them go. Look, the show's called The Next Decision because growth doesn't usually come from just kind of one giant transformation. It comes from a series of better decisions. And so for leaders that really want to dig in on their partnership ecosystem, make it a real growth driver, what is the next decision that they need to make to do that?
You've got to get over the psychological and sometimes material, real barrier that it's a zero-sum world. You've got to believe that it's not zero-sum, that there will be people in the world that can help you on your mission in ways that you don't yet know about, that are hard to believe sometimes, that become true. And that's probably my answer for you today. Get over, this is a fiercely competitive world. And there are many ways in which it can be zero sum, but it doesn't have to be. And so I would encourage people to get over that psychological barrier that everybody's in competition with us. It's really, no, partnership is a path to growth. Partnership comes in many forms, and it starts with that belief. That would be what I would say is the decision is to make the choice that partnerships can help you grow.
And that is an absolutely perfect place to leave it. Jeff, thanks for joining us on The Next Decision. I really appreciate the conversation, the candor. I love the way you're connecting partnerships and ecosystem strategy, to value and to growth. One of the big takeaways for me, you summed it up quite well there. It really is that an ecosystem can help an organization build that trust, extend that expertise. I really enjoy, thinking about it that way. And it's as if, together we are better than we are apart. So, thanks again for joining, and thanks to everybody for listening today to The Next Decision, brought to you by the amazing people and minds at Decision Council. We'll see you next time.
Thanks, Mike.